Honestly, the funniest thing about this movie was just noticing all of the cameos from Teen Titans VAs. I'm very wary about reviewing stuff that's new but not really that new, especially when I've got other videos I'd like to make first for the sake of variety and a bunch of non-YouTube stuff on my plate besides. Like, this film has been in theaters for, 4 weeks already? Everyone who might have seen it will have already done so by now. It's absolutely going to make $1 billion at the box office. At this point, you're only here to get my individual take on it, provided I even have anything remotely unique to say about the thing. Keep in mind, I didn't even make a video for Dungeons & Dragons, which is probably gonna end up being one of my favorite films of the year, because I didn't think there was much I could say about that one besides go see it right now. But some people refuse to leave me alone about the super gosh diddly dang Mario Brothers movie, so here we are. I could be talking about Doctor Strange or dunking on Harry Potter right now. You better appreciate this stuff, I swears. I don't know, I guess I could at least give you some context as far as my relationship with Mario as a property goes. Although I feel like once again this is a case where my experience might not deviate too hard from most. Mario is undoubtedly a character as ubiquitous as Mickey Mouse at this stage, though my earliest conscious memories are probably of playing New Super Mario Bros., Mario 64 DS, or Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door with my cousin. I think it was with Super Mario Galaxy in 2007 where it really hit me just how much this brand was responsible for some of the most vibrant and fun video game experiences of all time. A trend which has been kept up in the years since with stuff like Galaxy 2 and Mario Odyssey. And as far as capturing that fun vibrancy, I think the Super Mario Bros. Movie goes above and beyond, which part of me imagines might have been done to compensate for just how poor it is in a lot of other departments. Normally, I'd compliment a movie for feeling brisk and not overstaying its welcome, but as far as something that's this thin, I can't help but wish for another 30 or 40 minutes to help it feel like a real movie. And you know, that's not terminology that I generally like to use, but this movie blitzes by at freaking light speed. Like, this is the pilot for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur levels of just slow the heck down. Honestly, that's an insult to Moon Girl. At least that pilot episode had conflicts that didn't emerge and then resolve in what felt like milliseconds. And I wouldn't mind it as much if it didn't constantly come at the expense of characters and relationships. And like, I get it. The constant argument made in this movie's defense is that the Mario franchise is notorious for thin story and characterization. It's to the point that even the more story-driven games tend to give all of the pathos to the side characters, while Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Bowser stay inside of a kind of cookie-cutter mold. But you know what? My counter to that is, why make this movie as an origin story at all if you didn't then have a story to tell about Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, and Donkey Kong, and the rest all cementing their dynamics over the course of at least one of those characters undergoing some genuine character growth beyond Mario's extremely basic, extremely flimsy, believe in yourself, prove the haters wrong journey. Having Mario and Luigi as the eyes in for the audience members experiencing the weirdness of the Mushroom Kingdom for the very first time is maybe the excuse, but so much of the movie trades on the recognition of those things that doesn't really play. Acclimating to the sheer, confident weirdness of the Mario setting would be an almost brave choice for a mainstream movie, but I honestly don't get the sense that this is a film that's trying to appeal to normies, beyond just being a sedative for their kids. This is not a movie about getting used to the Mushroom Kingdom. This is a movie for longtime Mario fans who will already recognize every nook and cranny of the Mushroom Kingdom blown up for the big screen. Because we have a movie full of characters who don't grow or change, we have a succession of scenes where characters meet each other and then in the space of a minute congeal into dynamics which then go rock stagnant for the rest of the runtime. Toad dedicates himself to being Mario's guide and sidekick within seconds of meeting him. Peach establishes their quasi-romantic allyship and basically decides to bring him along on her quest before they've even exchanged 2 full conversations. It all just feels weird, even by Mario standards. Maybe the issue is that if this were a game, then the character and story dynamics would at least be forced to breathe a bit more by sheer virtue of being a couple hours longer. But in a 90-minute film, it just feels like I'm watching characters who are more eager to end the movie than they are to be a part of it. Or like the movie itself is almost ashamed to have characters, and would sooner be populated by character-shaped triggers for plot points, action scenes, and slapstick. Am I making any sense? A lot of the reason for the Mario games having stories as thin as they do to this day is mandates from on high over at Nintendo, demanding that story and characters be kept as simplistic as possible. And it's telling that the responsibility could lie either with them or Illumination for this movie feeling like half its dialogue is missing. I don't know, maybe this is telling on myself a little bit, but the last Illumination movie that I actually watched was The Lorax way back when that came out. So I don't know if this incredibly sparse, shallow dialogue writing is reflective of them or Nintendo. Either way, it's to the point that in the wider context, some of the lines and scenes feel like downright non sequiturs. I feel stupid, because I sound ridiculous, right? This is, without any insult intended, literally a baby movie for babies. It's not designed with people like myself in mind. It's designed, first and foremost, to keep your 7 or 8-year-old quiet for 90 minutes on a weekend, with exactly enough thematic and emotional hook to keep it one tier above literally jingling keys. And frankly, it makes me feel really mean to say that, because on the one hand, every frame of this movie is bursting at the seams with artistry and a sincere love of this property from the animators. But where the Mario property makes for an endless font of visual creativity, in terms of writing, there's very few movies on this scale that feel so constrained. I'm someone who believes that even for a movie you don't like, even for a movie you hate, you should always remember that the people who worked on it were probably trying to make something good. And if you're going to critique it, you should always do so with that thought in mind. So my only hope is that on the less than 0.001% chance that anyone who worked on the movie sees this video, they don't think I'm trying to belittle their work when I say that this film has all the substance of a really well-drawn Mario-themed slideshow. Hey, why is Take On Me in this movie? God, am I getting sick of shoehorned, contextless needle drops in movies. Here I am talking about respect for the people who worked on this film, when some executive schmuck or other couldn't even be bothered to respect them enough to let brilliantly composed and performed, completed musical tracks play over their intended scenes. Why? Did some guy at Illumination Studios really think that playing No Sleep Till Brooklyn or Mr. Blue Sky was going to be a factor in this movie making or losing that extra $1 million? Every single pop song in the film felt completely out of place, distracting, and borderline insulting to my intelligence. And you know, I'd die happy if I never had to hear the words in a movie ever again. And oh my gosh, I haven't even talked about the cast yet. The vocal performances are fine, I guess. Jack Black is the most unrecognizable as Bowser, but if I gotta be honest, another side effect of the movie being such a Speedy Gonzales is that none of his scenes go on long enough for Black to really flex in the way that I know he could. Charlie Day barely has to change up his usual affects to make an effective Luigi, which is useful given he spends most of the movie stuck in a cage with nothing to do. And Chris Pratt's Mario is perfectly inoffensive, very generic leading man for a very generic leading man characterization. Anya Taylor-Joy is totally serviceable as this movie's more proactive and somewhat dry-witted take on Peach, and Keegan-Michael Key as Toad honestly has so little to contribute that I keep forgetting he was even in the movie at all. The Kongs are where things get tricky. Seth Rogen playing himself, playing Donkey Kong is... I don't know. Maybe I'd like his performance better if it weren't for DK feeling weirdly like the most unfaithful characterization in the entire film. Once again, I know that this is a weird thing to harp on its face, but Donkey Kong has almost universally been portrayed in the games as a great big lovable doofus. Heart of gold, head of bone type deal. So having him show up halfway into this movie as a pompous, petty, verbose, insecure douche bro with a mostly one-sided hatred of Mario for embarrassing him in front of his dad, I don't know man, just makes you wonder if someone on the creative side of things just hates this poor ape and wanted to make this entire movie into a hit piece. Speaking of said dad, Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong is the standout of the cast, and not in a good way. Putting it mildly, his performance is absolute garbage. Not only does the voice not fit the character, it's also just a really obnoxious voice in a vacuum. It's like if someone deliberately stuffed their nose to the brim with phlegm and then tried to do a bootleg Harvey Fierstein impression. And every line read of his makes me want to die. I don't know, man. I feel like if you go back and watch the last video I put up, then everything I'm saying here is about in line with where my expectations were. As both a Nintendo fan service delivery mechanism and a baby movie for babies, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is a breezy, gorgeous looking, and gorgeous sounding affair. It'll distract the kiddies with lots of pretty colors. But you ought to know me by now, and that I'm a guy who judges media on character and story first. And on that level, I'm sorry, but this just isn't a good movie. It's not just simple, it's vapid. To the point that seeing a particularly high-budget rendering of the Mario world and characters is basically the only reason I could ever give for a discerning adult viewer to sit down with it, let alone more than once. It's a movie with nothing to say to anyone about anything other than, isn't this Mario stuff great? But hey, maybe you saw something in it that I didn't. Looking back, this is definitely the harshest that I've sounded in one of these since Ant-Man. I don't know, what do you think? Was I too mean? Did you see merits for this movie that I didn't? If so, sound off in the comments. Conversely, like and subscribe if you got any enjoyment out of my griping, and I'll see you in the future.